Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told how to voice radio. So today, we're going to be looking at Boswell Veramosa. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You see, this was a card which only became legal this past weekend. Came out in Japan, legal in Japan. In Japan, cards become legal when released. There's no 2-week waiting period like there is outside of Japan. And it's one of these which has gone and won a tournament on the very first day it was actually legal for tournament play. When I showed you a video about this recently, I told you this looked pretty busted. And would you believe it, ladies and gentlemen, it has been proven to be pretty gosh darned busted. Now, I should also mention there is one other card which came out this past weekend that does feature, let's say, prominently in this particular deck. So it's all built around Boswell Veramosa, so we should probably have a little bit of a gander at what that actually does. It is a grass-type Tag Team GX, and the first attack here should look fairly familiar. It's literally Jet Punch, which of course we see on Boswell GX. So 30 to the active, 30 to the bench for a single grass energy. And that adds up fairly quickly. You spread damage around rather nicely. Now, it's not going to add up to all that much. We don't really have any damage modifiers in this particular deck. I mean, look, obviously you've got Choice Band. Clearly you've got Choice Band here. But as you're going to see, this is not really a deck that relies on this. This is a fine early game attack. This is okay for the first turn or two while you're getting set up. It's not really what you're relying on. The second attack, however, this is so much better. What it does for 2 grass, 1 colorless energy, 190 damage. Next turn, it does 60. So just retreat to another Boswell Veramosa. That's really not a problem, as we're going to see in a moment. So now we're hitting 190 damage, which is going to get a one-hit KO on the vast majority of GXs. Tag Team GXs, no, except Magikarp and Wailord that you will be hitting for weakness. Generally speaking, 190 is going to be enough. And then we get to the GX attack, which is rather dumb, which for 1 grass energy does 50 damage, and you take 1 more prize card. But if you've got 8 energy attached to it, then you get to take 3 extra prize cards. And look, you're not going to pull this off every game. You ain't going to get 8 energy on there and get a KO of an attack that only does 50 damage every game. There'll be some games where you do, but let's be clear. 1 energy, 50 damage, if you get a KO, take an extra prize card. That in and of itself is great. And the other main part of this deck is Venusaur from Shining Legends. Venusaur from Shining Legends says that all of your grass energy counts double. So now that second attack of Boswell Veramosa is 2 grass energy. And now the GX attack, with all the trimmings getting an extra 3 prizes, is 4 energy. 4 energy is still a lot, but it's not prohibitive like it was back when it was 8 energy. And I've got to mention at this stage, of course, we're playing Beast Ring. Beast Ring here lets you attach 2 extra energy from your deck to an Ultra Beast, just so long as your opponent has 3 or 4 prizes remaining. If you can get rolling here with Beast Ring and Venusaur, then actually paying the 8 energy cost becomes genuinely viable, which in itself is kind of absurd. The other thing to remember here is that the second attack only doing 190 could totally work out in your favor if you end up doing 220 to a Tag Team GX. If they can't heal, then it means that next turn you should actually be able to get a KO, take 6 prizes, and basically win the game in 1 attack, which is a bit dumb. Venusaur's here for doubling up your energy. It is in and of itself a decent non-GX attacker. Being able to do 90 damage for essentially 2 energy is fine. It's not really what you're going to be relying on very often, but you can. But mostly here it's Boswell Veramosa with Venusaur to double up on your energy. Now, obviously, we play a couple of Tapu Lele here just to come and search out your supporters. And we do see a couple of Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko here is really fun. It means that you can use Flying Flip for 1 grass energy if you've got Venusaur on the field. It gives you a free retreater, so you can essentially use the second attack on Buzzwole Pheromosa, use something like a Guzma to switch into Tapu Koko while dragging a Pokemon active, and then you've got a free retreat, because remember, this turn after you use the big attack, it only does 60, but getting out of the active and then back in will reset that. And then we see one Shaymin Prism Star. I mean, especially when you're playing Venusaur, Shaymin Prism Star is an absolute no-brainer. For essentially 1 grass energy, it does 30 damage for each basic energy attached to all of your Pokemon. Bearing in mind, Venusaur counts each grass energy as double grass energy. I believe that would double up for Shaymin Prism Star here. Really good non-GX attacker. In any Venusaur deck, Shaymin Prism Star is pretty much a given. So, you know, we've got the Tapu Koko and the Shaymin Prism Star, but really this is an unashamed Buzzwole Pheromosa deck using Venusaur to double up your energy. Cool. Now, being an Ultra Beast, we have a bunch of Ultra Beast tricks in this deck. Obviously, we're playing 1 copy of Beast Energy, so you can do an extra 30 damage. That can be incredibly useful, because the GX attack now does 80 damage for 1 energy. Taking an extra prize, that is enough to KO an awful lot of Evolving Basics, the vast majority, to be honest, of Evolving Basics. And like I've said, most games you're probably only going to take 2 prizes, but you're taking 2 prizes off some tiny little wussy basic. That's absolutely fine by me. And of course we got Beast Ring, like we mentioned earlier, which is very important. And then we've got a single copy of Beast Bringer. Now, Beast Bringer, again, is one of these cards that is not often going to work. It only works if you've got 6 prizes remaining, it is attached to an Ultra Beast, and you take a KO on an EX or GX Pokemon. But you take an extra prize card. Now, it's got to be your first KO, essentially, and it's got to be against an EX or a GX, so again, most of the time, this isn't going to work. But on the turns where it does work, you're taking an extra prize card. That has absolutely got to be worth having a play around with, and I am 100% all in favour of this. Now, we're also playing a stadium here which came out in Full Metal Wool, a stadium that we haven't had up to now. And what it says is, all Pokemon GX and EX have no abilities. Well, the only one you're relying on here is Tapu Lele, and that's only in the early game. So, cool. Just use that. And it's amazing. It's really, really cool. What you do is you play this down, and there's a whole bunch of Pokemon out there like Zoroark GX loses its ability, Lycanroc that would drag a Pokemon in the active loses its ability, all EXs and GXs, even your opponent's Tapu Lele, they all lose their abilities. If you're using a deck that doesn't need a specific stadium and doesn't use EX and GX abilities, this is really good. And then, of course, there's 1 copy of Life Force Prism Star, because you heal 60 damage in special conditions from a grass Pokemon. If you're playing a grass deck, you're playing one of these. And the other card, which is brand new that we're playing here, is Green Search. As I said in the video about this, I know it's actually translated as Blue Search, but the character in Let's Go is green, so that's what we're using here. Any problems, blame Joe from Cerebi.net. He's the one that convinced me this was correct. Now, this is the other card from Full Metal Wool which really makes this deck tick. This card cannot be played if you have any Pokemon with abilities in play. Search your deck for 2 trainer cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Now, this might seem like an odd choice in a deck that revolves around Venusaur, but remember, your only abilities here are Venusaur and Tapu Lele. We're playing a full 4 copies of Green Search here, because either you're getting set up and you don't need it, or you're not getting set up and you absolutely do need it, in which case, yeah. I mean, it searches out stuff like Rare Candy. It's an absolute no-brainer, ladies and gentlemen, in this deck, because it just gets your Venusaur, and you really need your Venusaur here. The only way you're getting this GX attack off properly is using Venusaur and Beastring. But even the second attack here, the main attack you're going to be using, free energy is a lot more than 2. Venusaur and Beastring will basically set you up for the entire game. No Venusaur, and you're not getting free manual attachments on multiple Buzzmosa. It's just not happening. Now, in terms of other trainers here, 1 copy of Erika's Hospitality draws you some cards, very nice. It's a one-of in most decks in Japan. 3 copies of Cynthia, it's great shuffle draw, it's a 3 or 4 of in most decks. 1 copy of Ace Roller, because you're playing a free prize Pokemon that's got huge HP, you heal it before it gets knocked out. And then 3 copies of Guzma to either act as a switch after using Buzzmosa, or just to drag a Pokemon active and KO them. And then in terms of Pokemon search, we've got 4 Ultra Ball, which can grab any Pokemon. We've got 4 Nest Ball, which can only grab your basic Pokemon. And 4 Net Ball, which can grab either basic grass Pokemon or basic grass energy. That's a lot of balls for one deck, ladies and gentlemen, but you know what? It's kind of needed given that you've got to set up your Venusaur here. And then we see 3 copies of Rare Candy, obviously you need your Rare Candy here, and 2 copies of Choice Band as we mentioned earlier. Oh yeah, and a single copy of Switch, because sometimes you've just got to get your Buzzmosa out the active, and then back in again. This is a great deck, and remember, before this set, we had 8 Tag Team GXs, all of which had won tournaments over in Japan. Now let's make it 9 for 9. Yowza. As soon as I find a deck list with Lucario and Melmetal winning a tournament in Japan, which you know is going to happen, I will of course let you know. I do need to give a huge shout out to the lovely Code64X over on Twitter for sharing this deck list with me, and the combination of Joe from Cerebi.net and the lovely David Hockman for providing our translations for hitherto unreleased Japanese cards. All the cards which are out in Japan that haven't been released here that I've mentioned, there are links to videos I've made about them in the description. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for you to tell me what you think about this particular deck. Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! But please do remember the most important thing as always, be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about other games. But by far the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.